Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. And one more invocation, because I'm going to be using this book, Aparokshanubhuti, lightly. So the invocation from this book. Shri Harim Paramanandam Upadeshtaram Ishwaram Vyapakam Sarvalokanam Karanam Tam Namamyaham. I bow down to him, to Shri Hari, the destroyer of ignorance, the supreme bliss, the first teacher, Ishvara, the all-pervading one, and the cause of all the lokas, that is the universe. Namaste and good evening to everybody. Pranams to revered Mataji. I was just telling her after I came this afternoon that nobody does these retreats better than her and her team of dedicated volunteers. So here we are once again. In Texas, in the days of yore, so there was this Wild West town, and you know what used to be called in those days a snake oil salesman. He was arrested and brought by the sheriff before the judge, and he was charged with selling false cures to real diseases and real cures to false diseases, real cures to unreal diseases. So when we say spiritual life, what is it an answer to? We must first really understand the problem and then see what spiritual life really means. What is it an answer to? Before we dive into Advaita Vedanta, which we will do later today and tomorrow, especially a day after. But I think in one way, the most important thing is to appreciate the beginning, to begin at the beginning. What is the problem and what is the solution? Religions, it's not just Advaita Vedanta, all religions have said there is one answer to all questions, God. One solution to all problems, God. Every religion does that. Those religions which do not talk of God, and there are such religions. And this is an interesting thing for the West, because here in the West, you're used to religions which are all God-centric. And so that religion can be there without God. That is an interesting concept. That's why Buddhism intrigues so many people. You know, there are always questions about, is Buddhism a religion at all or not? Yes. So there can be religion without God. But again, even there is one answer to all the questions and one solution to all the problems. You can call it nirvana, you can call it kaivalya, you can whatever you call it. You can call it the Buddha nature instead of using the word God. So there is some ultimate solution. The Buddha put it very well, actually. He said that there is a problem. The problem is suffering. Somebody told me, don't say suffering exactly, Swami, because not all people are suffering all the time. What Buddha meant by dukkha was dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction is a permanent condition. Today, I was at LaGuardia Airport and I saw, it's been remodeled, it's very nice and flashy now. It was a bit of a mess for many, many years. It's getting much better. As you go through the remodeled area where all those nice shops are there, it said Kate Spade Collection, and all expensive stuff there. But the first thing that struck me was, the first time I heard that name was a few years ago when she committed suicide. And I saw the Kate Spade Collection and I thought, look, all of this. And she killed herself. And this was going on in my head, you know. Somebody might ask, might just comment, you didn't know her at all. How would you know what she went through, why she killed herself? But I know this much. She wasn't very happy when she killed herself. Whatever it was. She wasn't delighted with her life when she killed herself. So there is dukkha, there is dissatisfaction, ranging from the unsatisfactory nature of things, of my life itself, to the intensity of suffering which leads a person, inexplicably in most cases for people other than that person, to actually kill themselves. Dukkha, all pervasive, whether you call it suffering or just dissatisfaction, all pervasive problem, all pervasive problem. And then the Buddha went ahead further. Does that dukkha have a cause? What's the point in discovering the cause? Because if it is a cause, if it has been caused by something, a cause and an effect, if you want to remove the effect, dukkha, suffering, if it has a cause, if you remove the cause, the effect will go away. If it has no cause, it's just there, you can't do anything about it. So he said there is a cause, and that cause is Krishna, thirst, desire. And is it a curable disease or an incurable disease? Suffering? He says it's curable. There is an end to suffering, and that he called nirvana. And is there a course of treatment for this disease of suffering which will lead to a cure? He said, yes, there is a course. There's a way to go about it. There's a method. If you apply that, you get a cure. If you don't apply it, you don't get a cure. What is the method? The Buddha said the eightfold path, Ashtanga Marga. But my point here is just look at the four noble truths. I think that sort of underlies all spirituality. There's a problem, a huge, huge problem. Second, there's a solution, there's a cause of that problem. If you remove that cause, the problem will go away. And the problem does go away. There is an end to suffering. And there is a way, a method. So, spiritual life is an answer to a deep problem which pervades all our lives. I think we just should take a look at that problem a little bit before we plunge into the solution. This problem of dukkha, of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, disease is suffering, death is suffering, contact with the unpleasant is suffering, separation from the pleasant and the loved ones is suffering. There is suffering, there is unpleasantness, there is sorrow all through life. And we try to reach fulfillment. We all want fulfillment. We want happiness. I was reading this book. Even when people doubt that we want happiness, Sean Carroll, he is a physicist at Caltech. He wrote this book, The Big Picture. And at the end of the book, he says that people say the goal of life is happiness. I don't think so. The goal of my life is not happiness. The goal of my life is knowledge. I can put up with a lot of unhappiness and struggle to get that knowledge, which I'm seeking as a physicist. So the goal of life is not happiness. That's a shallow analysis. And immediately you could ask that gentleman, so when you do get that knowledge, does that make you happy? Does that give you fulfillment, or does that make you mad? No, it makes me mad with happiness, not mad in the American sense. So yes, fulfillment. What probably the physicist means is that his goal is not pleasure, but fulfillment, that everybody's goal. Everybody's goal is fulfillment. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be coming so easily. And we are surrounded by suffering, by unhappiness. All the ways that people try to make themselves happy, it doesn't seem to be working. I mean, just think about it. All of us here, for the last, if you're young, for the last 20 years, if you are middle-aged, for the last 30, 40, 50 years, if you're elderly, for the last 60, 70, 80 years, all of us, we have been trying to make ourselves, this one here, I, me, myself, happy. That was the one thinking, unthinking goal of all my endeavors, in wise ways and otherwise ways. I tried to make myself happy. Now we ask ourselves right now, right here, whether you are here, by here nowadays means here and virtually here. So there is a virtual audience here also. Let's ask ourselves, have we succeeded? Have we succeeded in making ourselves deeply, profoundly happy? Unfortunately, most of us, if you're honest, if you're a little introspective, if you're reflective, no, we haven't. May not have been miserable, may not have been terrible, but hasn't been particularly deeply, profoundly satisfying. The satisfaction, pleasure, happiness we have got, that also is always threatened. It's always threatened. Threatened by disease, COVID, everywhere. The last 2 years have taught us the vulnerability, not only of human life, but special vulnerability of human happiness. How easily it can be threatened and destroyed. Old age. The young do not know it. The elderly know it all too well. The young think life is great. Good or bad, it's going on. I have lots of things to occupy me, and this is how life will go on. And the elderly think that, oh no, you don't know. You don't know what you are headed towards. The eldest member of our congregation in New York, Bill, he's 97 years old. He's a veteran of the Second World War. Rishi knows him. I think everybody in Vedanta knows Bill Conrad. And he, just day before yesterday, he was taken to the hospital and he came back. It was a minor problem. But as he was being taken into the ambulance, I said, Bill, you always tell me that old age is not for sissies. And he chuckled and he said, that's for sure, Swami. That's for sure. Old age is there. A doctor told me, I can't forget that, many years ago in Calcutta, a doctor told me with the advances in medical technology, Swami, we can ensure that you will live long, more or less ensure. But we cannot ensure you will live well. So prolonged life, prolonged suffering. Old age is suffering. And then there is death at the end of it all. It scares everybody. It doesn't scare me, Swami. I don't think about it. It's like a psychoanalyst will latch on to that. Aha, you don't think about it. You're suppressing your fear. Psychoanalysts will always find problems. If you say you have this complex, this fear, that problem, all right, let's go into it and find it out. And if you say, I am fine, I have no problems, doctor, and the psychoanalyst will say, serious problem, you're suppressing everything. So death is there at the end of it. And it's not an end. If you, the worldview that Hindus and Buddhists and Jains, Sikhs, the Indian worldview is that we have had many, many lives. It doesn't end. It didn't begin with birth and it doesn't end with death. That we exist after death, it's not good news. Why is it not good news? If I survive death, yes, in that sense, it's good news. The physical death of the body is not the end of life. But it's not good news because we are just going to repeat this all over again. Not the exact same thing, but just this unsatisfactory state of things. And we have existed earlier, any number of times, innumerable times. Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, many times before you have been born, you and all these kings, you do not remember it. But I remember all your births and mine too. Many times before we have passed through this vale of tears. Really, many, many past lives. What were they like? Many people are curious. What was I in my past life? Don't be curious. Born isn't worth looking at. If you think, what was your life? What was my life earlier? Some variation of this right now. Some earlier version of this. Not much better. Maybe sometimes much worse. The Vedanta teaches this. They write verses on how many times we have passed through these ways, these dusty roads in past lives. How many fathers and mothers have been lost to us. How many husbands and wives, how many children and grandchildren have been lost to us, have we got and we have lost them again and again. How many times wealth has passed through our hands. Power and achievement and popularity and fame have come and gone. If this is so, then the great question arises, what's going on here? What's the point? What's behind all this? Where have I come from? Where am I going? In this one drama of one life, there the question should arise. And if it is at all true, if we even have a belief in many lifetimes, then the question becomes of overwhelming importance. What's going on here? I read a short story in which it's a description of a party. At first, it seems to be a description of somebody who's gone to a party. And as the evening progresses, then you see it's actually a commentary on life itself. And towards the end of the short story, it's a very, very short story. At the end of the story, he says, evening is coming fast. Sun is going over the western horizon. And the guests begin to depart one by one. By that time, you know he's talking about life. All those I partied with, they're departing one by one. time for our generation. New parties will start. Time for us to go. And yet all this time I haven't met my host. I wonder who organized this party, who invited me here? Why hasn't he or she shown himself or herself? And it soon will be time for me to go out into the dark. So this is the story of our lives. It's tragic. It's deeply mysterious. And we must inquire. So much sorrow. Somebody wrote a question. But Swami, you talk about suffering and sorrow and release from sorrow and suffering. But my 11-year-old daughter said, no, I don't think so. There is happiness and misery in the life. If you have accepted happiness, we should also accept the misery. I had no answer to that question, Swami. I thought, for God's sake, she's 11. That's the answer to the question. She hasn't, and I pray to God she does not face the terrible shocks that life has to deal. Right here. One of the greatest shocks, sorrows that life can deal, can hit us with. Not the loss of grandparents, not the loss even of parents, the loss of children. Little children cut off. I personally met parents who have lost children, grown children. And it's the greatest sorrow. Somebody said that there are words for people who have lost parents, orphan. There are words for people who have lost husbands or wives, widows or widowers. There are no words for people who have lost their children. It's such a devastating blow. And yet it's not uncommon. You come across such cases once in a while. Why should it be so? Is there a solution to this? Is there an answer to this? And all the religions of the world insist that there is an answer. The answer is in one word, spirituality. If you don't want to use the God word, spirituality. Spirituality is the answer. There is something that can take you beyond sorrow. There is something that can give you deep, lasting, profound fulfillment, happiness. In Sanskrit, Atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptischa. Deep, lasting transcendence of sorrow. I'm using my words carefully. Transcendence of sorrow. And profound attainment of the ultimate peace and bliss. It is possible. All religions of the world say that. I'm making a claim here. All religions of the world say that in different language, in different mythology, in different terminology, different theology. But they all say we are talking about something very deep, very profound here. I have come to this feeling over the last few years that a sign of maturity is spirituality. No matter how educated someone is, no matter even old in age, unless one has a spiritual quest, and you don't have to be in Vedanta or you don't have to come to Advaita, non-dualism, it could be any kind of spiritual quest. It could be in devotion, it could be you could be a meditator, you could be an active do-gooder to the world, but a spiritual quest which looks for transcendence, which is not looking for fulfillment in pleasure. The whole mentality, which is pleasure seeking. So going from one burst of pleasure to the next. Somerset Maugham, he wrote so beautifully that if you single-mindedly chase pleasure, very soon you find nothing pleasing anymore. So there's a mentality which chases pleasure. There's a mentality which chases achievement. I must win the sprint in my grade school. I must go to Ivy League colleges. Then I must get the best job on Wall Street and get the top position. And win the rat race. Win the rat race is still a rat. So that's one kind of mentality. One must at one time see that none of it is working. If you are intelligent, if you're particularly intelligent, you will look around you and learn it's not working. You will, even if there is an urge to try out those things, then one should try it out. All of it, pleasure, power, achievement, whatever thing you think that it's very worthwhile. Try it out, and very soon one must quickly notice it's not going to work. Nothing wrong with pleasure or power or money or achievement. Don't get me wrong. It's not their fault, poor things. They were not meant to give us infinite happiness. They're not meant to bear the load we are trying to place on them. The only thing that can satisfy us, the only thing that can take us beyond the terrible sorrows of this world is God, is infinite. If your want is infinite, only infinity can supply that want, and only infinity can bridge that gap. There's a poet who said that humanity suffers from a God-shaped hole in our psyche. There's a gap, and that gap can only be filled with God. That gap can only be filled with infinity, with spirituality. While on the very sad subject of losing children, the shortest philosopher who was visiting us recently, he told us of the shortest short story ever written, and one of the saddest. Mark Twain, he entered a competition for writing the shortest short story possible, and he won the competition. It was a one-line story, and one of the saddest. Short, just one line. For sale, baby's shoes, never used. So there is such deep sorrow in life, and we are all vulnerable to it. Happiness is very little, and it is fleeting when it comes. Most people do not get the kind of happiness that comes from a lot of wealth, a lot of learning, extraordinary good health, string of successes in life. Very few people get it, and those who get it are not satisfied by it. Those who do not get it keep on chasing that mirage for most of their lives. So the wise, which includes all of you here and in the virtual audience, we at some point or the other, we have felt that there is the answer to this lies in spirituality. A spiritual solution to the question of life, big question of life. What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? How can I find deep fulfillment in life? How can I find security, safety from suffering? The great philosopher Wittgenstein said, religion is the quest for the ultimate security. I think it's a very good definition. Is it at all possible? Isn't it that life is just like that? You can't do anything about it. But religion, spirituality answers, yes, it is possible. Across the world, across civilizations, across millennia of human history, there's one answer coming through, that yes, there is an answer to the question of life, the question of suffering, to the possibility of attaining peace and happiness. And that is spirituality, in its broadest sense, in every religion, at the core of every religion. Here I must make a distinction between the lower religion and the higher religion, or as I like to make it, a distinction between religion and spirituality. It's not that religion is without spirituality, but religion also is more than spirituality. There's something else also there. Yes, we may be religious, we may come to spirituality, but there is an initial stage where I'm using spirituality to improve my life. It's God for my life. Like a washing machine is a convenience for my life. A car is a convenience for my life. Air conditioning is a convenience, especially when it is 105 outside or something. Similarly, God is a convenience for my life. It makes this life a little better. But my focus is still on this life. My financial problems will be solved by the blessings of Lakshmi, and by the blessings of God. My relationship problems will be solved. My poor health will be solved. I'll recover from disease. These are the reasons why people go to God. And the majority go to God for this. Is it wrong? It's not wrong. It's not wrong. Sri Krishna is very clear in the Bhagavad Gita. I have 4 kinds of devotees. Artha, Artharthi, Jigyasu, Jnanija. Those who are in trouble. Somebody is admitted with COVID in a serious condition in the hospital. You pray. In war, in Ukraine war, somebody said that there are no atheists in the foxholes. The Fox also, when there's heavy shelling, he would dig trenches and holes to hide soldiers. At that time, there are no atheists. Everybody prays, save me. So in trouble, when we are in trouble, we pray to a higher power. Even if I have not believed, many people from India, young people come and say, for the first time, we are really interested in spirituality. When we were students back in India, only time we thought about religion was just before examinations. I would go to the temple in my campus, college campus, and pray, just see me through. I promise I'll study next time. So we are in trouble, and we want the help of God. That's one kind of devotee, one kind of religious person. Second kind is not in trouble, but I want more. I want more. I want success in life. I want to win the lottery. I want this and that. So many things in life we want. They are called artharthi. Literally those who are seeking wealth or prosperity. Not in trouble, but more. So this comes under I will classify them under the group God for my life. God as a convenience. Religion as a convenience for my life. And the majority of people who turn up in temples and in churches, majority belong to this category. Krishna says it's all right. At least they have faith in God. You make a beginning there. But why are you classifying them at a lower rung? Because they're still seeking the world. What's wrong with it? It won't work. With the help of God, you will still get some measure of protection, some measure of fulfillment, but you will soon see it doesn't work. Even if your life is a little better, a little more sustainable, still not fulfilling. By the grace of God, then one comes to higher religion, which is spirituality. How would you distinguish spirituality from this lower religion? They are also devotees, but they are now God for my life for God. See, Vivekananda, the young student, he goes around in Calcutta asking this question, have you seen God? The first time he got a direct and convincing answer was from Sri Ramakrishna. And he became the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, and Narendranath Datta became Vivekananda. And thank God he did. That's why we are here today. All of us are gathered here because of Vivekananda. But what category did he belong to? Look at his question. Have you seen God? He's a seeker. Not because God is going to make him rich, not because he is in trouble and he has to get through examinations or something. No. He wants to know if God exists and can God be experienced. So that is the third category. Krishna calls it a jigyasu, spiritual seeker. And we are all here because we are jigyasu, physically or virtually present. We are all seekers, spiritual seekers. This is what I meant by maturity. At one point, one must be mature enough not only to come to religion, but more than that, to come to spirituality. And there's a distinction. Once in a big Hindu temple here, I was invited to give a Vedanta talk. And I went there and I saw it was Sunday. So many cars, the parking lot was full. There were literally hundreds of people present. I thought, I'm going to get a wonderful audience for the talk. And we went to the temple, then we went to the auditorium. Oh my God, the auditorium had 25 people, half of them were on their cell phones. Now, all those other people, definitely religious, but they're religious in a ritualistic sense, in something that has to be done, ticked off. I do many things in life. I have jobs, I have to look after my children's schooling, and a little bit of rituals, temples, or Sunday church going. So that's the mass religion. But there is spirituality which is higher. Seeking that all of that, money, relationships, wealth, success, popularity, Facebook likes, all of that is not going to fulfill me. None of it is going to protect me against the blows of life. None of it is going to protect me against the great sorrows of old age, disease, death, and repeat, and again, and again, and again. So the higher religion, spirituality, is that which offers you a solution to the deep problem of life. That suffering can be overcome. Deep, permanent, lasting peace is possible. Proof. How do I know that you are not like that snake oil salesman offering unreal solutions to real problems? Now at least we know the problem is real. Well, the proof is all the great saints, whoever you can consider enlightened, spiritually advanced in any religion, in any tradition of the world, throughout the ages, notice only one kind of person seems to have overcome suffering and attained some kind of deep meaningfulness in life. And that's a spiritual person. Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, doesn't matter. In every tradition, it's possible. Not only it's possible, it's a must. We must catch it. Sooner the better. Otherwise, there's no end to this cosmic drama, this party. It's ending now for some of us, but it'll begin again. And this is another party to be had. So we must meet the host of the party. We must get acquainted with this gentleman. Swami Vivekananda says the essence of spirituality. There's one Upanishadic verse lines he was fond of chanting to American audiences when he came here in the late 19th century. Shrinvantu vishve amritasya putraha aye dhamani divyani tastu vedaham purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasah parastat tameva viditva ati mrityumeti namnya pantha vidyate ayanaya. Soaring, sublime poetry, ancient. These words come down to us maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. We do not know who was the one who first burst out with these poetic lines. Thoreau, here in America, reading not these maybe, but Upanishads, he says, I awaken to the light of an earlier dawn, the dawn of civilization, the first light of spirituality that humanity saw. What does it say? Listen, ye children of immortal bliss. We who are destined to die, we know that whether God is real or not, religion is real or not, I don't know. Whether solution to suffering is possible or not, that also we don't know. But one thing everybody knows, no doubt, that death is there, waiting for me. And for that, this rishi, this sage says, you are immortal, children of immortal bliss. And if there are gods in heavens, you listen to. Listen to what? What is your message? Vedaham purusham mahantam. I have realized that infinite being, that radiant being. What radiant being? What infinite being? What is it like? Aditya varnam, blazing forth like the sun, not with a material light like this, but the light of consciousness, awareness. Unlimited spirit, unlimited radiance. I have known that. Tamasah parastat, forever beyond darkness, the darkness of suffering, the darkness of old age and limitation and death, darkness of sorrow and loss. Forever beyond that. There is something, there is a shore beyond the ocean of samsara. That shore, that infinite being, I have realized. What good does it do? Suppose such a thing is possible. Tameva viditva ati mrityumeti. Knowing this, one goes beyond death. One goes beyond aging. One goes beyond bodily suffering and mental suffering. One reaches fulfillment. Whatever one has been searching for, lifetime to lifetime, that is attained upon attaining this. Any other way? There's no other way. Nanya pantha vidyate ayanaya. Whatever you try in this world, try pleasure, try money, try relationships, try society, try entertainment, medicine, science, politics, all have their roles to play. But the demand you are making of them, it's not their fault. You are making an unreasonable demand of them. Something limited, something worldly, you want infinite result from. Can't give it. Here is something that can fulfill our demands. That God-shaped hole in our heart, that infinite lack in ourselves can be filled up. There is this infinite reality which we can realize. And that is the promise of spirituality. Now, we must all become spiritual seekers. We are. What is necessary here is that if I know that here is this problem and I become aware of it, then the wise person says that, okay, there is a solution also. It is a huge problem, huge, the greatest of all problems, the greatest of all questions. And there is the solution, the answer to. In that case, the next thing to do is make up our minds seriously, internally, need not tell anybody, need not give a declaration, need not be formally become a monk or a nun, but all of us must within internally make this shift, and it's a dramatic shift. A huge shift. I think almost all of us here have already made it, but let's acknowledge it. Who am I? I'm a spiritual seeker. Who am I? I'm a spiritual practitioner. Yes, somebody is a corporate executive, somebody is a retired person, somebody is a housewife, somebody is a medical professional, somebody is a monk or a nun. But yes, we are spiritual seekers. I love that when Mahatma Gandhi, I read somewhere, he said that when people ask me who I am, people think different things about me. Gandhiji says that some people think that I am a freedom fighter against the British rule in India in those days. Others think that I am a politician. Some think I'm a social reformer. Some think I'm an educationist. But if you ask me, who are you? I will say I'm a simple man in search of God. A simple man in search of God, Gandhi. This young man asking in search of God. Buddha setting out on the quest to find enlightenment. What lies beyond suffering? This age-old quest is our quest too. We must own up to it. This is the greatest thing, in the greatest adventure that we can all have, spiritual life. And it can be it's an entirely private thing. You don't have to make a declaration. All right, I'm done with my old life. Now I'm starting a new life. I want to make it update Facebook status. No, don't do that. It's internal. Probably for this group here, it's already done. But we acknowledge it. I am a spiritual seeker. This the Buddhists call it samyak sankalpa. First, samyak drishti. First, our philosophy must change. Then next, having come to this understanding, is a serious problem of suffering. And there is a serious solution to this serious problem. Now I make up my mind. I, like Mahatma Gandhi or Buddha or Vivekananda or innumerable men and women before me throughout history, I am now a spiritual seeker. This is the final thing that a human being can do. The highest thing, the greatest adventure. I am on this path. My goal, ultimate goal is this. So my ultimate goal is not money, not relationships, not a new gadget, not even recovery from a particular disease. All those things are good and they will come and go in life. You can't stop them, but they are no longer your or mine. They are not our goal in life. I am not looking to them for deep fulfillment. I am not looking to them to take me beyond suffering. I am looking to my spiritual quest. So this is the next step. Recognize there is a problem. Recognize there is a solution. Really, there is a solution. People have gone and become enlightened. It's possible. And now I too will. It's a huge shift. Already, if we make this shift, many things fall into place in life. Many answers come to many of our questions in life. See, people come, why I'm stressing this? Normally, I don't start here, but today I'm starting at the beginning. It's good to begin at the beginning. Good to begin. We are going to climb to the peak of the Everest, Mount Everest. The highest conception of spirituality. I regard Vedanta as a finishing school for spirituality. The highest, noblest, most sublime idea of human nature, of spirituality. We're going to go there. It's good to begin at base camp. I notice sometimes quite close to the summit, when the Q&A questions come which should have been answered long ago. They come because I'm still thinking of putting things right in my little personal life and problems. Those things become very small. From that height, everything becomes tiny. That's inconsequential. Our sights are fixed. God, enlightenment, nirvana, moksha, aham brahmasmi, I am that absolute reality. That's where we are going. Now, just like climbing a mountain, some basic preparations are necessary. And it's the duty of a Vedanta teacher to touch upon that. So I'm going to touch upon that in the remaining part of this talk and we take questions. These preparations, these are practices. Often the way they are taught are like qualifications. The qualifications is a little disheartening because you feel that either I have it or I don't have it. I always feel short, falling short of the necessary qualifications. But if there are practices, there's something I can do about it. We all have these, but we have to make it a little better. What are they? They're called fourfold qualifications, or you call them practices. Fourfold preliminary practices. basic, foundational. With these, when we learn, when we dive into Vedanta, the result will be enlightened. It's guaranteed. If these are not excellent, these are not developed, when we dive into Vedanta, what happens is there's a whole range of possible consequences. Either I don't get it at all, or it's not interesting for me, or I get it, but it just seems like a really clever philosophy. But my life still seems to be the same. I don't seem to have changed much. I still feel that what you advertised, the solution, deep solution to the problem of life, I haven't got it yet. That's because it's not the fault of the philosophy, not the fault of the teaching. It's rather those four basics. These four basics, think of it like four practices that I have to keep up in my life. Or think of it that I'm driving along in my spiritual journey. Like in a car, you're driving along, you keep your eyes on certain things. The speed and the gas in your tank and your driving mirror and the road ahead. Few things you keep your eyes on when you're driving. You make it natural. Otherwise, there's always the potential of disaster. Similarly, these are the four things one keeps one's eyes on in your Vedantic spiritual journey. What are these four things? I'll give you the Sanskrit and the meaning of that and the actual practice. Viveka, Sanskrit, from which the name Vivekananda comes. Discernment. Discernment. Discernment of what? We'll see. Then vairagya, dispassion. Vairagya means dispassion. You can already see why this vairagya is important. All the other things we were clutching at earlier, pleasure, relationships, gadgets, entertainment, power, money, one must not be crazy about that anymore. One must step back a little from that. Otherwise, spiritual life. See, the Manhattan, they advertise it. New York, the city that never sleeps. Somebody wrote, city that never sleeps, but dreams. So if you are working like crazy 5 days a week, and then the next 2 days you're partying like crazy, not much time for Vedanta left. Not much time or energy left. So one must step back. One sadhu in the Himalayas put it nicely. I'll tell you in Hindi and translate. ये साधन जो है ना महात्मा जी थोड़ा पीछे हटती होती है. The spiritual practice, the higher spirituality, is always a matter of stepping back a little. So vairagya, dispassion. Then a set of six treasures. We'll talk about that. And then finally, mumukshutvam, intense desire to be free. Viveka, vairagya, shat sampatti, mumukshutvam. These are called sadhan chatushtay, the fourfold practices. Fourfold qualifications, fourfold practice is a better word. And any Vedanta text, most Vedanta texts, if you take it up, they will introduce us to these four. They make a big point of it because it's very important. It becomes especially important as you reach closer to the peak of the Everest and you start gasping for breath and you say, well, what's wrong? Why am I not making any progress? The problem is whether the base camp. You didn't equip yourself with the necessary oxygen tanks and everything. So Swami Vivekananda says, I know where the shoe pinches. It's not in philosophy. It's not in the higher Vedanta. It's not in I am Brahman and the subtle reasonings. It's not there. That's not a problem. The problem is here. So this book, the book I am holding now, Aparoksha Anubhuti, it's an introductory text by Shankaracharya. There also, these four preliminary practices are discussed. But you'll find them in just about every Vedanta book. I'm just using this. Discernment, first one. Simplest definition of discernment is nitya vastu viveka. The discernment, older Swamis used to translate it, in our books are all translated as discrimination. It's a bad word, discrimination. You must discriminate, if you say. It sounds a little odd to modern years, 21st century years. So, in fact, discernment is a better word, and it's actually a more precise word, it's more precise translation of the original Sanskrit viveka. The Sanskrit viveka is the discernment between the eternal and the non-eternal, between the spiritual and the material. And a more precise definition is given in this book. I'll read out the Sanskrit and then give you the meaning. Nityam atma swarupam hi drishyam tad viparitagam Evam yo nishchaya samyak viveko vastuna savai. Atman, the real self, in itself alone is permanent. Whatever you experience is impermanent, transient. Such a settled conviction is truly known as discrimination or discernment. General meaning would be there is some spiritual reality to be attained. It is eternal, it is worthwhile, it is deep and profound. Compared to that, everything else is transient and not worthwhile. This much feeling, and anybody who is a spiritual seeker has this kind of feeling. Otherwise, why would you be a spiritual seeker? If you are devoted to God in any religion, you would feel this about God. There is an eternal spiritual reality, and I seek that, not the passing show of this world. That is viveka. Here it is about yourself. My real nature is eternal, spiritual, and what is opposed to that, what I experience the world and myself to be, this body, this, even my mind, my thoughts, these are all transient, and I can see the difference between these two, my real nature and this. If you already know your real nature, why go any further? Because we don't know. It's just an intuition, just a kind of belief, just a kind of beginning point to begin with. This is called viveka. Next, that which is the world, things in the world, even this body, a certain stepping back from it. Till now, we were clutching it madly. Why? We thought it will give me happiness. It is a solution to my problem. Now we know it is not. It's never worked for anybody. It hasn't worked for me. Now it's time to step back. That is called vairagya, dispassion. Here, vairagya is defined in graphic terms. Brahmadi sthavaranteshu vairagyam vishayeshvano yathaiva kakavishthayam vairagyam tadhi nirmalam. The indifference with which one treats the excreta of a crow, droppings of a crow. Such an indifference to all objects of enjoyment from the realm of Brahma to this world. Everything in this world, up to the highest heaven. So in the Hindu, Buddhist, Jain cosmology, there are multiple heavens and multiple hells. But they're all transient and temporary. Even whatever is here, the mixture of happiness and sorrow here, it will all go away. One thing is certain. And the greatest of happinesses, which you have in various kinds of heavens, there are multiple layers of heavens, they also go away at one time. And terrible sufferings which one goes through in hell, multiple hells, they also end. They also thankfully come to an end. All of these, especially the attractive ones, the tempting ones, that's the highest heaven, and the best things that we have in this world, you treat them internally as useless and as despicable as the droppings of a crow. So that's pretty radical. Such a vairagya, such an indifference is called pure vairagya. And looking at the play in words, kakavishta, droppings, excreta of a crow, and nearby, next word is nirmalam, pure. It's sort of setting up in our minds, I think it's subconsciously, a kind of repulsion, disgust for the pleasure seeking in this world compared to the peace of indifference to this world. I still remember when I was, before I became a monk, there's a gentleman who was my boss in a particular company. He told me, I was an intern there before I became a monk. So he told me that, there is the sources of happiness in this world. It's a very worldly person, but insight. He said, one is money, if you're rich enough. One is power, if you're powerful. That can buy you some kind of comfort in this world. The third one, very powerful, he said, I still remember he said, is indifference. If you are indifferent to the little ups and downs of this world and of this body also, then you are also protected from the sufferings of the world to a great extent. Okay, so vairagya is this sacred indifference to the little things in the world for your own sake, not for the others. There's a story of a gentleman who went to an ashram and he misplaced his 20 rupees in India, rupees. And he was looking around here and there. And the monk, the head of the ashram, said, "Sir, what are you doing? Why so restless?" "Oh, Swami, I misplaced my 20 rupees. I'm looking for 20 rupees. Oh, sorry, it was not 20 rupees. It was 2,000 rupees. And so 2,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees. What is 2,000 rupees? The infinite is in front of you. God is in front of you. Go sit and meditate. Forget that so many of these 2,000 rupees will come and go." And the gentleman thought the Swami is right. And so he went to the shrine and meditated. A few weeks later, he was back and he saw the Swami was in a temper. And he was shouting at all the people in the ashram who were all standing like this before him. The Swami was saying, "Thieves, thieves, all of you, I'll call the police." The gentleman said, "Swami, why so angry? What happened?" The Swami said, "I'd kept 20 rupees here in the desk and now it's missing. One of these fellows has definitely stolen it. I'll get to the bottom of this." And the gentleman said, but Swami, I lost 2,000 rupees and you told me that to forget it and concentrate on the infinite. When here you are getting so upset with 20 rupees, and Swami said, "Oh, that was your 2,000 rupees. This is my 20 rupees." Dispassion. Dispassion especially for mine, not just for others. Dispassion for others is very easy. For what I think to be mine. Then the sixfold practices. Sixfold treasure. Shat Sampatti. All of these basically boils down to one thing. The six treasures, I'll tell you, these are disciplines to be practiced. They all boils down to staying with it, focus. Stay with Vedanta. Stay with the spiritual path. Shamaha, which means peaceful mind. Mind should not be restless. Damaha, the calm body, sense organs and motor organs should be quiet, under your control. I remember once we were sitting, we were studying the scriptures. The Swami in the ashram in India, that was 25 years ago, he was teaching us. I still remember one of my friends, we were all novices, another novice, a friend of mine, he was sitting there and he was sort of shaking his foot like this, reading the text, going back and forth, reading the text, swaying back and forth and shaking his foot. And the Swami said, "Stop that. What are you doing?" This general restlessness of the body. Quiet, sit still. Physical, eyes looking here and there all the time. So, control of the senses, sense organs and motor organs. Dhamma, second. Third is titiksha. Titiksha means spiritual toughness. Spiritual toughness means, see, it's a toughness which enables you to stick to spiritual life, to your spiritual quest in spite of the problems in life. How much trouble people go through to hold on to a job, how much trouble people go through to raise a family. It takes 20 years of your life. It's put in there until the children are grown up and gone, at least. So, how much trouble you go through? With a fraction of that, you can attain God realization, Buddhahood. Really, I'm Swami Brahmananda, Swami Shivananda, the great Swamis of our order. They would tell young men who would come to the monastery how much trouble you go through to get through university examinations, staying awake whole night and reading and memorizing. With less effort than that, one can realize God. So titiksha, a toughness, that no matter what the problems are there in the world, with people, with my body, with my mind also, I will stick to my spiritual practice. Titiksha. Fourth, uparati. Rati means flowing out into the world, too much engagement with the world. Partying, single-minded chasing of pleasure. And Somerset Maugham said nothing will be found pleasing anymore. No, stop that. Don't flow out into the world continuously. Withdraw. Like that monk said, piche hatke, step back. And then samadhana. Samadhana. Fifth one is samadhana. Samadhana means settling, focus. Once you're withdrawn from the world, too much unnecessary activity. About work and engagement in the world, Swami Vivekananda said, neither seek nor avoid. One is avoiding stuff in the name of spirituality. They call it, new term is the spiritual bypassing. They call it these days. One is avoiding. Avoiding will not work. One must face the issues in one's life squarely. One sadhu in Uttarakhand, he said, अपने जीवन की सच्चाई स्वीकार करना बड़ी भारी चीज होती है महात्मा। To acknowledge the truth of one's own life is a very powerful practice. Yes, God, spirituality, enlightenment, they are true, absolutely true, and they are for me. But right now, where am I? What is the condition of my thinking, of my day-to-day life, my routine? That also I must acknowledge to myself. Then only progress is possible. A great Swami of our order, Swami Premeshananda ji, is a disciple of Ma Sharada, the Holy Mother. He was regarded as an enlightened person during his lifetime itself. In one of the letters, he writes, slightly scolding a novice. This young, I don't know if it's a novice, a young man. He says that, for those who cannot keep their own accounts, I have nothing to say. In Bengali, he said, that means, where am I? What am I doing? That amount of self-reflection. If that is not there, no spiritual advice is going to work. So, samadhana, settledness in life, focus, settledness, inwardness. So much activity, we have reduced external engagement, and so that gives me more time, more energy. Now, what do I do with the time and energy? Settle down into Vedanta, into study and inquiry, into meditation, and so on. So, samadhana, fill your life with spiritual practice. Don't become lazy. You cut out external engagement. So don't become lazy with extra time and energy. That is meant for focus in spirituality. Mumukshutva, samadhana, shraddha. Shraddha is a working faith that what these texts and the teacher tells me is real. And now I don't realize it. Maybe I don't get it now, but let me stay with it. That's the only way to learn anything. And then finally, mumukshutvam, intense desire to be free. An intense desire for spiritual freedom. How? Let me just translate what Shankaracharya has said about the fourth one, mumukshutvam. Samsara bandhanir mukti katham me syat kada vidhe iti ya sutridha buddhi bhaktapyasa mumukshuta. When and how shall I be free from this, the bondage of this world? Such a burning desire is called mumukshuta, desire for freedom. So these are the preliminaries, the ground upon which Vedanta is built. One more thing I must introduce here. It's not mentioned directly here. All Vedanta requires upasana. Before knowledge, before enlightenment, before spiritual inquiry, the highest practice. Before that, there is another level, which is meditation or worship. Specifically in our tradition and many traditions, this involves initiation. So you're initiated by a guru into a mantra and a meditation practice. That reality which we shall seek as our own inner reality in Vedanta from tomorrow onwards. But before that, you visualize it as God. In which form? In Krishna, Rama, Ramakrishna, Shiva, Durga, Kali, in whichever form, whichever particular religious paradigm you take up. But there must be this deity meditation and a mantra repetition. That's a very powerful practice. Is it essential? No, it's not essential. Is it recommended? Highly so. If you ask me, Swami, set aside all the qualifying remarks here. Just tell me straight, give me the truth straight away. Would you recommend initiation or not for a spiritual seeker? Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's another thing. The fourfold practices, initiation by a guru into a mantra and meditation techniques, and then we enter into the heart of non-dual Vedanta. I haven't started yet. These are all the beginnings, base camp. Now we begin the ascent tomorrow. All right. I'm going to go straight to the questions now.
I don't have anything coming through the chat.
If you want to raise your hand and ask a question, or yes, tell us your name. I'll repeat the question so that everybody can hear.
My name is
Rohan.
My question is regarding Discernment. How can I practice it on a day-to-day basis?
So Rohan's question is about Nishkama Karma. How can I practice it on a day-to-day basis? Nishkama means without desire. Karma means action. Usually action, work, we do it with desire. I'm going to get something out of it. That's why I'm doing something. And how can I do something without any desire at all? Well, it's not without desire. Now the action, nishkama karma, the work done without desire, that we do with a desire for enlightenment and for a desire for God realization. I want to become a spiritual practitioner, so I must transform my work. How do I transform my work? Earlier, I was doing the work for getting money or recognition or something like that. Now I'm doing the work as a worship. I still have a desire. If you still have a desire, then how can you call it desireless? So Ramakrishna says the desire for God is not to be counted among desires. That's the desire that removes every other desire, that frees you from desire. So it's not to be counted among desires. So with a goal of enlightenment, I know that I must transform my activities. I must. Otherwise, what happens is, if my work life, if my daily life is not touched by my spiritual practices, then I have two compartments. One is throughout the day, throughout the week, is my life in the family, in the community, and in my workplace. That takes up so much time and energy. And then I have a little bit of time left over at the end of the day, at the end of the week for spiritual practice. So little time and energy. So spiritual practice is bound to lose out because the demands of the world will extract from you. I remember one novice in our monastery, he was missing his early morning meditation. He used to look after the book sales shop in the ashram. And the senior monk cautioned him, I still remember. He said, "Look, my boy, we will ensure that you do the work in the book sales. If you don't open the bookshop, people are going to yell and come to the senior Swami. The bookstore is still not open. That book is not available. The novice is lazy, and we will scold you and we'll make you do it. But your early morning meditation, that's between you and God. God is not going to come and yell at you. You must take it up. Unless you do it, you're going to cheat yourself. Nobody can help you ultimately. I mean, when you're young, senior Swamis can scold you, but who's going to scold you when you are a 50-year-old monk or 80-year-old monk? It must become on your own power, on your own cognizance, you must do it. So what happens is spiritual practices suffer if they're pushed into a corner. And then the rest of our life also suffers because it's non-spiritual. So I have my worldly activities and then this Vedanta center, two separate things. No, make the whole of life Vedanta. Make the whole of life spiritual. How? All the activities that I do, the job, the studies, the cooking in the kitchen, cleaning the house, even taking care of my physical body, all of that is a worship of God. And so think about it. I am worshipping the Lord. As in the shrine, I offer lights and incense and flowers and food offerings. Similarly, I am doing an assignment. I am cleaning this place. I'm driving to work. All of work that we do, it can be connected to God. That is Karma Yoga. So this which you are doing, you come here and listen to Vedanta. Yes, it's part of Jnana Yoga, but you render some service in the ashram. Even when I'm going back to the shrine, the temple that is my house. I go down and lie down in the bed. I'm meditating on the Divine Mother. I'm translating from a song, a Bengali song, to the Divine Mother. So transformation of daily activities by connecting it to God. I am doing this, but I have a job. If I do that, I'll get my salary. Very good. There's no problem. You must get your salary. Mataji has an ashram. She doesn't go out and do a job, but even here she has to raise donations and she needs that money to run the ashram. You have a life to lead. You have a family to take care of, at least yourself to take care of. So you must earn a living. There's no problem there. That's not work with desire. You will do the job, but mentally have the attitude that I'm offering it to God. That is Nishkama. Gentleman there. Tell us your name and ask the question. Oh, very well named.
When karma ends, is that when one gets realized, or after one gets realized or enlightened, certain karma ends?
Yes. karma ends, is that realization? Or the second part?
After realization slash enlightenment, does
Karma end. Is karma burned? Now, karma has two meanings. One is action, work. The second meaning is the results of work. I've done many good and bad things, and the results of them, those good and bad things are good and bad, merit and demerit, that's also karma. And that result is coming in my life as sukha and dukkha, like pleasure and pain. What I see in my life, good and bad things happening to me, are the results of my past karma. Now you're asking, when all of this ends, do you become enlightened? No, it will not end by itself. Whatever you do, it will not end. More action you do, the more conditioning and more karma is accumulated. I remember this funny thing, a monk in the Himalayas said that when he was a young kid in a village in Uttar Pradesh in India, on the bank of the Ganga, he said monks used to visit our village. And I, as a little boy, I used to go to visit different monks. So this monk who lived, a strange old man who lived under a tree, was passing through. And I went and asked him, please give me, like I would ask everybody, please give me some spiritual advice. What should I do? What spiritual practice should I do? And the monk said, don't do anything. In Hindi, he said, kuch mat karo. I was taken aback. What do you mean? In Hindi, he said, I'll translate. He said, bin kiye hi itna sab ho gaya. Jab karoge to kitna badega? Without doing anything, all of this has come. Your whole life has come. If you do anything more, you keep on increasing. Now, of course, you can not do nothing. So then if you must do something, then do spiritual practices. Do karma yoga, do be devotional, meditate, serve others, and inquire into who am I. So karma will not end by itself. More karma also will not end. Try to do no karma at all, that will also not end karma. So what will end karma? Realization will end karma. Enlightenment will end karma. One must purify one's karma to begin with. You see, all these preliminaries of purification. And then the process which we will start tomorrow. That will lead us to enlightenment. That enlightenment, moment of enlightenment, Upanishads say, Shiyante chasya karma. Shiyante chasya karmani. Tasmin drishte paravare. What happens upon enlightenment? All the karmas, the accumulated past actions of this one are destroyed, of the enlightened ones are destroyed. And one is freed from karma. So that's one way of understanding enlightenment, because the idea of karma is so pervasive in Indian thinking. One Swami said, "Ye badi gambhir siddhant hai." This is a very profound doctrine of karma. Notice, Buddhists and Hindus believe in God and the immortal self. Buddhists reject the immortal Atma, reject the concept of God, and yet both believe in karma. So this doctrine of karma was held by all types of Hindus, by all Buddhists and Jains and Sikhs, and in fact, in another form, by Jews and Christians and Muslims in another form. It's a very profound doctrine, and the only way you can escape, Swami Vivekananda says, you must learn how to work the machine. You cannot run away from the machine. Learn how to work the machine means learn how to use karma, transform work with desire into selfless work. And spiritual realization will burn up the storehouse of karma. So this is Vedantic doctrine. Yes. Yes, Gaurav. Gaurav asked a very good question. It seems that viveka, the discernment, is the basis for renunciation and whatever follows. Correct. This is a secret which I should have told you. These fourfold qualifications or fourfold practices, they're linked. They're not independent. They are causally linked. The first one leads to the second one leads to the set of the six. The set of the six leads to the last one. What does it mean? If at any point I feel that it's lacking, I don't have enough, it's an intense desire to be free, I scratch my head, Swami, I wish I had this intense desire to be free. I don't really. I mean, I have a sort of a desire to be free. It sounds like a cool thing to be free, to be enlightened. But intense desire, no. Then what do? Instead of trying to intensify the desire to be free, it's difficult. What you do is go back to the earlier one. The 6 practices, the 6 treasures: calmness of mind, control of the sense organs, spiritual toughness, spiritual fortitude, the withdrawal from too much worldly engagement, focus on spiritual life, and deep faith in the scriptures and all. But Swami, those are also not very strong. Then go back to the one before that. Vairagya, dispassion for the world. Strengthen that. But that's my problem, Swami. I don't have strong dispassion for the world. Go back to the first one, is discernment. How do I improve that? Spiritual teachings, the lives of the saints. Think about it. Look back upon your own life. Look at the life of the people around you. Notice the party is coming to an end very soon. There isn't much time. So that will increase that discernment, viveka. As viveka increases, your vairagya will increase. As viveka and vairagya increase, the six treasures, the 6-fold practices to focus, they'll become easier. As all 3 increase, you will see an intense desire building up for spiritual realization. Yes, good. They are causally linked. If you are having problem at any one stage, go back to the earlier one. My mind is restless. I can't focus. Or my mind goes everywhere. Don't try to struggle with that. Go back to the earlier one, vairagya, dispassion. Everything in the world, no matter how important, at least during the time of my meditation, during the time of my Vedanta, is as insignificant, repugnant as the droppings of a crow. Mind will become calm. Mind is disturbed, restless, because we have dumped trash into it. It's like this. You're eating. If something is in a dumpster and you take it out and put it into your mouth, the very idea is disgusting. You won't do it. If you do it, you'll have an upset tummy immediately. But we are doing it all the time to the poor mind. From the dumpster of the world, we take in stuff and continuously dump it into the mind. What's going on in the world, what the internet supplies to me, what other people are saying about me. Very interested. Don't. It's not worth it. You're dumping stuff and nonsense into the mind. No wonder the mind is restless. Poor mind. Leave it alone. It'll calm down. I think we are, yes, the last one. Tell us your name and ask the question.
My name is Vedanta. I recently was taught that last 1 year. The Vedanta it gives a lot of knowledge and it looks for that clarity and looks like the calm in the mind. But the biggest problem what I face is that doesn't bring the love, compassion, karuna, daya in my heart. So we have a lot of like as a spiritual person, think like that additional knowledge will take me higher, but sometimes it bursts out on that hope. We are at a very low level of understanding. So that karuna daya doesn't come.
Yes. So there's a question from Digambar that Vedanta takes a lot of knowledge, it's intellectual, but it doesn't evoke that love, the karuna, the compassion for others, the daya, the kindness. Well, on both counts, I would differ a little bit. Vedanta is not really about lots of knowledge or reading lots of books. It's rather what you said, you use the word clarity. It's simple teaching, and we need clarity about that. Once we have clarity about that, a consequence of that will be compassion, openness. See, love is not easy. Love is not really an emotion. Often what passes for love is a kind of emotion which is pleasing to oneself, which may not be particularly loving to others. Love is not very easy. It requires us to step away from the small self. And I feel a lot of love towards somebody or something that may not be true love. It's an emotion. But Vedanta prepares the ground for true love because it makes you step away from the small self. So that clarity, which shows that I am not this little body and mind. When expressed in love expressed towards others, we'll see in Vedanta in the second session tomorrow. It leads to oneness. So that's the deepest aspect of love is oneness. Not that I love that or that thing, that place, this food, that person, but rather I and the beloved are one reality. Oneness is the highest form of love. And that Vedanta does. Not only that, one of the monks I admire very much, a friend of mine, he told me that, again in Hindi I'll translate, he said, आप सोचते हैं वेदांत यहाँ से होता है? नहीं, वेदांत यहाँ से होता है. He said, you think that Vedanta comes from here? No, real Vedanta comes from here. Look at Swami Vivekananda, who was more Vedantic than anybody else. But what a heart. Vivekananda Paramadaya. It's that heart, because of which we are getting all the benefits more than 100 years after he passed. And people of the world will continue to get benefits of this for centuries and centuries to come. So Vedanta does prepare the ground and open us up for love of the highest kind. Yes, it's not a very emotional kind of love. It's more a very spiritual kind of bonding.